Well, lots going on at the city of Victoria. We're reaching out to the mayor, Marianne Alto, right now. Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Ryan. Always delightful to speak with you.
And I'm going to say this right off the bat. We got a lot of stuff to get through, a lot of important things happening in the city. So I am going to try to be as fast as I can here and get right to a few of these issues.
Okay.
I'm not always the best because I always find these things fascinating to talk about. But let's do this real quick. 22-story building. Blanchard and Fisgard, it's been sitting there as this empty lot for a long time. It used to be an office tower that was planned there. Now it's changed. What got approved at council yesterday?
Yeah, you're right. You've hit it on the head there. 22 stories, 156 units of residential housing with some commercial on the ground floor. It was originally designed, and imagine this has been on the books since 2007, so it's quite a while. It was originally designed for office primarily with some residential, but of course the world has changed dramatically since then. And so they asked to have more residents than commercial, and that's why they had to come back. It is an absolutely stunning building. I don't know if you've seen any of the designs, but the unique part of it is not just the 22 stories, but the fact that every few floors there's what they call a sky garden. So on the corners, I believe it's every 4 floors, on one corner of the building, they actually have an open garden about the size of a small suite. So when you look at it from the outside, it looks like there are hanging gardens, and I can only imagine for the residents that will be living there that this will be a really unique opportunity for them to get outside space while they're actually in multiple floors above the ground. So it's a really unique, very beautiful design. It's going to add really important housing to the market, and it does recognize the fact that over the last few years in particular, the demands of downtown have shifted quite dramatically away from typical office space and towards the fact that we want to have more people living in the downtown neighborhood. So it's quite an exciting application to see finally come to fruition, and as you will note, it was very wildly supported by council.
Yeah, and one thing I think is interesting, too, is it seems like there's been a bit of a slowdown in this kind of housing being proposed or built or construction starting on it. So is this a sign of things turning around a little bit for downtown housing?
Yeah, I hope so. And you're absolutely right. There's been a bit of a lull for the last year or so, I think, as the markets have adjusted. One of the things that's interesting about this building is that you've seen the vast majority, anyway, of the housing that's being built in the last few years is being rental, which is really important. It's what very much needed. This one is actually a condominium, when we were all remarking on the fact that this is the first condominium complex that we've seen at this scale in quite a number of years. We could only think of one other that's happened actually in this term. So there's been a real preponderance of focus on rental housing, which, as I say, is really important, and that's been a good thing. And now seeing this added to the pool has really made a difference. We're continuing to focus on housing. This term has been primarily about that. And I think that we're seeing great progress, but we're nowhere near what we need for the next 20 years, which is reflected in our official community plan. But yeah, this is a great addition. It's unique in its design. It's in exactly the right place for a building of that height. It is surrounded by other buildings of similar stature, and so it's very much a sense of the redefinition, I guess, of what we're seeing in the north end of the downtown core is very much like this. And you're right, it's been around a long time. I remember actually when it was that dive shop years and years ago.
Yeah.
And so we've been waiting for a long time for this. It was called Gateway Green for a long time. I'm not sure if that's what they're going to keep calling it, but it's great to see this confidence by a developer and investors in that area of the downtown, and really pleased to see such a unique design. Can't wait to see it built.
There you go. Okay, Fisgard Street right along Blanchard there, as you mentioned, used to be the dive shop. There's an example of what it used to be. And I could keep talking about that. But like I said, I'm going to be good. I'm going to move on to our next topic, which is the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club. They've been in the news for years and years and years, and they continue to be in the news for this reason. They're getting cracked down on for what they do. Even though we've legalized marijuana use, the Compassion Club serves marijuana that is, I guess, stronger and different than what is in the legal framework, so they continue to get cracked down on. And now you have written a letter to sort of, I guess, give your support to them, asking for the enforcement to get halted. You've written to the minister involved at the BC level. Talk about what you've asked for and why you've decided to get involved.
Yeah. You started out with a good background there that the club's been around for years and years, and they have a very unique position where they provide ingredients for folks most of whom have quite significant diseases, chronic diseases or chronic conditions. And you're right, they do provide a different type of product. It is a product that requires medical recommendations. So this is not something that you or I could just walk in and go, hey, serve me or sell me or whatever. They are very specifically oriented to folks who need this as a medicinal product. They have been around for decades, actually, and have been remarkably civil in the way that they've dealt with a very small population, and have been also pretty much ignored by various orders of government since that time. And what's ironic about this for me is that those are always during the years where cannabis was not legal and not regulated. And despite that fact, they've had a fairly modest and fairly neutral relationship with various orders of government and enforcement agencies. And it is a great puzzle to me, I have to say, why it is that now, at a point where they have, as you all know, they've gone through various legal challenges and whatnot, and various precedents have been set with them as an example, as a model, and they are still in the midst of that. In fact, they're in the midst of a judicial review of various aspects of their ability to do what they do, and that has not been resolved. And so the multiple pieces for me here seemed ironic, is the best way to put it, I suppose, and difficult to understand in the rest of it. Since they're in the midst of a legal judicial review, since we're in a place where cannabis is legal and regulated, since they have a long history of serving community, since they have never been in a place where they've caused any type of community disruption, it's dramatically odd to me that the provincial government would crack down on them right now, given all of these circumstances. And so the letter that I wrote actually had two primary purposes. One was to solicit information from the province to say, why is this happening now, given all of these circumstances? And the other piece was to recognize and to elicit a little bit the story about how very many city councils in Victoria have been supportive of the club over the years. And that's significant because you obviously are aware that different terms of different councils have different people, and very eclectic people, may I say, in retrospect. And despite that diversity, or perhaps because of that diversity, councils for some years have been supportive of the club's operating within certain terms and rules and regulations, et cetera. But it just seems peculiar to me that given the reality of the days in which we're now living, that this should be a priority of the province for enforcement. And so my letter was essentially to say, how come now? Why? Please explain to me why. And let me reiterate that this and previous councils have written letters of support, have been public in their support. And yeah, it's just a puzzle to me, I have to say. And so I wrote to say, please help me understand why you're doing this now.
Well, that's an ongoing story that is still playing out, but we just wanted to get your sense of it and why you've decided to weigh in. And there you go. That answers the question. Thank you so much for speaking to us today. More we could have gotten to, as always, but we'll leave it there for now for time. But Marianne Alto, Mayor of Victoria, thank you so much for talking to us today, and have a great weekend ahead.
Always a pleasure. You have a great weekend, too, and my best to your listeners.